It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
My first guest is with me right now. I'm going to bring him on screen. Here we go. Lance Hines. Lance is a city council member with the city of Little Rock. And Lance, thank you so much for getting up and joining us this early in the morning. Appreciate that.
Morning, Jan. Glad to be here.
Okay, so the reason I brought you on is when we went to this legislative session, the first time our Republicans tried to pass the bill that prohibited sanctuary cities in the state of Arkansas, it failed miserably, could not get it out of committee, in spite of the fact that we had a majority of Republicans. That was very disillusioning. We turned that into a major battle. And within 24 hours of heavy duty pressure on social media and putting the names and the faces and the contact information of the Republicans who voted the wrong way or conveniently left the room or were not present to vote. The next day, we managed to, because of the added pressure, get them to turn that vote around. And it passed overwhelmingly. In fact, they couldn't wait to get to the table and vote on it. So now we have legislation in the state of Arkansas that prohibits sanctuary cities. Now, as a city council member, what does that legislation say to you? What does it mean to you and your responsibility from your city standpoint?
Well, I believe that the municipal ID program that we started violates sanctuary city status. I think it's a sanctuary city program. It was kind of put in under the guise of being able to try to help the homeless. And of course, it always has a public safety component that the police support. And from one standpoint, it does help us document those folks, but based on the ID and stuff they're supposed to provide, you still don't know who they are actually. But we do photograph them and fingerprint them, and that information is available publicly. I think the big issue we're going to have is our city attorney has stated that he believes that it doesn't violate our Department of Justice grant agreements, that type of stuff. But I think what it's going to end up having is we're going to have the Attorney General of the state of Arkansas determine for us whether or not that's a sanctuary city policy or not. And that's what the law states, that the AG's office will be the arbiter of that. But since we've got a city attorney who says it doesn't, in the state of Arkansas, we're all children of the state government. So I think we'll have to get the AG to determine what that status is. Basically,
the legislation says that the Attorney General will probably end up having to determine if a particular program that any city in this state has adopted violates that new law in our state. But here's the deal. For people who don't understand what you all were doing in Little Rock, you had handed out over 1,100, your city handed out over 1,000, 1,200 photo IDs to illegal immigrants, to illegals, people who could not prove they were here in the United States and in our state legally. Yeah. Now, to me, that's a sanctuary city program. I mean, what about that does not reek of sanctuary city?
Right. I don't know. That's the question that our city attorney hasn't really been able to describe, only his opinion, and we know what opinions are like.
Exactly. Well, now tell me this: how did this ever pass? Did you all vote on this? What was it called?
No, we never. It was called a municipal ID program. We never got to vote on it because it was done administratively through the budget process. So we did vote on it, but there was no way to carve it out of the legislation, which for us to do, it was initially funded with $180,000 of our tax money to start this program. But the way it was done administratively, I think somebody could also challenge us on the way we approved it.
You think? Yeah, one of those kind of deals where they sneak it in. You have to pass the budget before you know what's in it, sort of thing, is what it sounds like to me. So you've already spent, your city has spent, you said $180,000. That's for a position. What is a liaison? Or is that the position plus?
The position, just to let you know, even though it's a municipal ID program, the person that runs the program is called the Multicultural Liaison. And for a program that was supposed to be to help homeless get ID and people that couldn't get ID. But the funny thing about the state of Arkansas is if you're in the country legally with a visa and a passport, you can get a state issued ID. And the only person that couldn't get a state issued ID is somebody that couldn't prove, one, they were here legally, or they couldn't find their birth certificate in the case of some homeless. But uh, my view on that is we've got wraparound services for the homeless community, and that they've been able to get those folks IDs before we started. So really, the real deal was this was an end around by one of our city directors and the mayor at the time and our city manager to create a program to give people who are not in the country legally identification, which gives them access to city services. And I sent you a screenshot, and anybody can go on Twitter, and I think it's at Multicultural Liaison Little Rock. If you do a search for that on Twitter, you can see we've got a Twitter page for that person that runs that program, and it's obviously targeted to get folks who are here illegally ID. And in fact, if you're a Mexican citizen here, you can get an ID from the Mexican consulate, and the embassies from Guatemala, El Salvador come to Little Rock once a quarter and give people who are here illegally IDs from their own countries, which is a form of ID. But for some reason, we felt we needed to create this special program because people couldn't get ID, which, like I said, it's just a doorway. The one good thing is we made sure with the election commission, this election cycle, that they were, Pulaski County Election Commission, that they were aware of it, and they would not accept that as a form of ID to vote.
So your city is still handing to date. You all are still handing out these IDs, in spite of the fact that this new law is passed, and no one has called the Attorney General to see if maybe what you're doing is wrong.
And it's my understanding the law doesn't take effect until July 1, the way the state statutes take effect. So there's nothing for the Attorney General or anybody to enforce until the statute actually takes effect. Okay. So I imagine they're gonna. I think it's done purposely. They're gonna keep doing this to set up a challenge and force somebody to get the AG's opinion involved, which will probably be me.
Yes. So do you all have the votes on the city council? If you all decided that you didn't want to fund this any longer, or that it needed to be, a cease and desist until the Attorney General, can you all not do anything as council members?
If you'll recall, I tried to pass a resolution at the city level to basically state that we would not become a sanctuary city or have sanctuary city policies, and I could not get enough votes. So I pulled that resolution down, with the hopes that the state legislature would preempt us, which they ended up doing. And now that we've got that, we'll try to see if we can get them to pull it down.
This is just incredible. And I wonder how many other cities are doing this that we don't know about. Are you aware of any other cities? I know that you had mentioned
in Arkansas, I don't think we're the only city doing this type of, but there's other cities in Arkansas that have expressed interest. Fayetteville, Eureka, on creating their own municipal ID program like Little Rock's.
Because you know this. How do you know this?
Because they've called and asked us how we're doing it.
So it sounds like we need to do a push on our Attorney General to investigate this program and go ahead and issue an opinion, rather than waiting for the city of Little Rock to ask for opinion. I think that Leslie Rutledge, our Attorney General, knows.
It's going to take a citizen such as myself or another resident of Little Rock.
Or how about a bunch of citizens? All the people who are out there, yes, all the folks who are out there listening right now. What do you suggest? Do we need to apply pressure as citizens of this state to, because even if you don't live in Little Rock, folks, when your capital city is giving out valid photo IDs to illegal aliens, I'm just going to go ahead and call them exactly what they are. They're illegal aliens. If our capital city is doing that, then those folks are free to run around this state. And I'm wondering how many other social programs, how many other programs will this entitle them to receive? And what kinds of entitlements will they be able to receive as a result of having this valid photo ID? Will they be able to vote?
Well, the election commission says they won't be able to vote, but they can plug into a lot of city services for residents of Little Rock. And, whether it's our children, youth, and families programming for which is mainly after-school childcare, summer programs for youth. There are a bunch of programs they can plug into there, and they're already plugging into our school system, which our tax dollars pay for. And I tried to explain to some of the African American members of our committee is that we have already got struggling schools in Little Rock, and the inflow of illegal aliens and their children in our school system takes resources away from those kids who need it most. That normally, if they weren't here, if they weren't here in the country, they wouldn't be in our public schools. So.
Right. Well, I'm going to suggest that we need to have a twofold approach to fighting this and stopping this outrageous behavior and blatant violation of federal immigration law. And here is what my suggestion is that we do. I think that the citizens in Little Rock, number one, need to start en masse calling their city manager, calling their mayor, calling their city council member from their district, and each people from that particular district. The folks in each district need to rise up and tell their city council members, we don't want this, and we don't want our taxpayers, our tax dollars funding a program that violates federal immigration law and violates our new state law, which explicitly prohibits programs that are sanctuary city style programs. And any program that encourages people who come to our country illegally to get a photo ID and become part of the system here rather than coming here legally and using the process and the system that we have in place, to me, that is a sanctuary city. And that's exactly the kind of thing that you would expect to happen in California, not Arkansas. So I don't know why this is happening in our state, but and I don't know why we had so much trouble. Well, I actually do, but I'm not going to say. You've got some major employers in this state who are hiring illegals in mass numbers, and that needs to come to a halt too. And that's a whole different topic. But for today, I'm going to suggest that people contact City Hall in the city of Little Rock and demand that the city cease and desist with this program until we get an attorney general ruling. And then we need to press, the people need to call the attorney general's office in this state. And they need to call her and say, look, we don't want this. We don't want other cities to start adopting this. If this is what we're going to do, it makes a mockery of the whole federal immigration law and further makes a mockery of this prohibiting sanctuary city bill that we just passed, that our legislators passed overwhelmingly.
Right. And I tell you, the funny thing is that the city of Little Rock, we're facing some budget deficits and cuts. And to me, that seems like an easy way to cut, $180,000 that we could be using for other city services to provide, whether it's our parks or public safety type stuff. And I'll tell you what they use. The whole thing they use this as the biggest thing these IDs do is give these illegal immigrants access to our bank. There are some banks who have agreed to take that as a secondary form of ID. Most federally insured banks can accept that as a form of, it's not recognized as a legal form of ID, but there are some community banks that are state chartered that are using it as a form of ID for them to be able to bank and do business like that. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay, this is amazing. There were two other pro-immigration bills that Governor Hutchinson signed. One of them would allow nurses to graduate from nursing school who came to America through the DACA program, and the other one allowed them to get out of illegals to get out of out-of-state tuition, which I don't get that either. So if you are here in America illegally, you can come to one of our universities and you don't have to pay out-of-state tuition. But if you're a legal United States citizen and you're from Texas or another state, and you want to come to an Arkansas school, you have to pay that out-of-state tuition. So we're discriminating against American citizens.
And if you're coming in from out of the country legally to go to one of our colleges, you pay out-of-state tuition.
Yeah, so it rewards bad behavior. It rewards illegal behavior. Amazing. Lance, thank you so much for getting up early with us to talk about this. I really appreciate it. We'll let you go back to bed now. And please keep us posted on what's going on with this particular.
And like I say, I'm waiting. We're in the middle of the budget fight. So as soon as we get this put to bed, I plan on turning my eyes on our ID program.
Well, since this was in the budget and got passed by slipping it in the budget, why don't you just axe it from the budget?
Well,
Okay.
I may make we're going to have some budget amendments come up next week. I might be able to make. I think the funny thing is, our folks didn't even want to have a vote on it, an up or down vote. So I told them I can always bring it back, and we may get an opportunity to force a vote on it and see if I can get a budget amendment passed.
If you need some support from the citizens, let me know. We'll get the people up there. Okay.
We can definitely use it. Thanks, Jan.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Lance. All right. So that was Lance Hines. He is a city councilman with the city of Little Rock, and we were talking to him about Sanctuary City program. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It was in place. It was a program that allows people who come into the state of Arkansas illegally to get photo IDs from the city of Little Rock, which opens the door for them to get all kinds of other entitlements. And by gosh, if that's not a sanctuary city program, I don't know what is. But now we have a state law in place that's supposed to prohibit any sort of program like that. And it's going to take an attorney general ruling, looks like, to get that stopped.